in here in Darwin, California, and running the usual suspect equipment, and life is good. I'm glad to be back here. I was away for a while a few weeks ago, but here I am living once again in town, and so back over to you, DJ6HN.
Okay, very good, Max. Let's see, any other early check-ins for the Vinny Sideband Roundtable? This is NU6X.
NY6L Hysteria.
Okay, got you, Jay. What's new in Hesperia?
Oh, not too much. Just enjoying milder weather and winding solenoids here for Bob AK6R, which I'm going to get back to. And we're running the Alda 103 here. Just, let's see, we're putting out about 74 watts on peaks over.
Okay, winding toroids. Boy, that sounds like a lot of fun.
Well, it's good pocket change for buying like vintage sideband gear, like this Alda 103. I'm running barefoot roof.
Okay, very good, Jay. Well, I am hearing you direct right now. You've got maybe a propagation is starting to accrue. Let's see, what time do we have? We have a few more minutes. Any other early check-ins for the Vinny Sideband Roundtable? This is NU6X. Well, I'm not hearing anything. John, K6KOI. Do you want the list?
Yes, I am. Unfortunately, I've got the same problem now that you have. I've got some noise coming in from next door to the lighting system, and I asked him to turn it off, and he hasn't done it, so whatever. I'll be listening to you direct and probably to some stations on the SBR, but I can copy you, Mark. Go ahead.
Okay, well, you're not moving here. Do you have an amplifier on?
Yeah, I'm running the SR 2000, but I've got it on low power. Hold on. Okay.
Okay, well, let's see if the SR 2000 makes it through the night. Okay, what we have here, first on the list is WB6RLC, Glenn, followed by Dennis, W6 Delta Queen, W6 Delta Queen, followed by his better half, Lisa, KF6QNG, Kilo Fox 6QNG. And after that is Chuck in Redwood City, N6 Alpha Fox, N6 Alpha Fox. So far, so good?
Yes, just a little bit.
Okay, but you have those four?
I do.
Okay, then we have N6WHK, November 6th, Whiskey Hotel Kilo, followed by my fellow Arizonian in Sholo, KG7TR. Then Dave, WJ6W. And after that is Skip, I think the prefix is N6LGL. Little green light, Skip. So far, so good?
Got it.
Okay. Then we have N4 Delta Lima Alpha, November 4 Delta Lima Alpha, followed by Bob, WA9JIB, and then George, W6YEC, over.
Got it.
Okay, I don't understand why this update on my new iPad's not running, but okay, then your neighbor, K2RP, Ron. And then Max, KJ6HN, Kilo Juliet 6 Hotel November, Max. And last on my list is NY6L. And John, don't put me on the list. My back, I can't sit in this chair much longer, and so I need to move around and get some ice on my back. So with that, it goes back to you, K6KOI, for the Vintage Sideband Roundtable. This is NU6X.
Thank you so much, Mark. I got it, and I don't know why I'm not coming in better. I guess maybe the noise is very high there, but you're quite Q5, and I do have noise here. I've got the KFS on the computer, and it's sort of close. It's like 180 degrees away from the opposite direction, if you will, facing my back, but it's there in case I need it. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, one and all. My goodness, I started out well. This is John, K6KOI, and welcome to the Vintage Single Sideband Roundtable. I'm in Del Mar, California. I'm the host this evening, and the station I'm using tonight is a Helicrafters SR2000, and it's running 1500 watts. It's kind of hot. I'm going to lower the power on it, lower voltage on the plate. So now it's running, oh boy, it dropped a lot actually. It's running 700, 800. You know what? I'll put it back up. What the heck? I know I'm going to be getting into my neighbor's stereo, but that's life. So we meet each Tuesday evening at or near 3895, and we shall be using equipment that's manufactured before 1981 or home-built equipment. Hello, Mike. With equivalent technology. First-timers may use modern equipment, and that is the abbreviated preamble. The questions, and there are two, and they are alternative, one or the other, not both, courtesy of K2RP. This evening are, number one, your experiences with mobile ham radio during the vintage days versus ham radio mobile operation in contemporary times today. If that is something that maybe you can comment on, that's one possibility. And the other, because not everybody has gone mobile, but almost everybody has had some experience with field day. So question number two is very, very similar, but insert field day instead of mobile radio. So compare your experiences in the vintage days with field day operation versus contemporary times. So again, alternative questions so that we have enough time for everybody to participate before the band goes south. Okay, with that, are there any announcements this evening pertaining to vintage ham radio? Don't hear any. Are there any more check-ins, K6KOI? Don't hear any. So we will pick up the first four, and they are Glenn, WB6RLC, followed by Dennis, W6DQ, then over to Lisa, KF6QNG, and then to Chuck, N6AF. Take it away, Glenn.
People City, next year's over from Palm Springs to the desert. Rick, tonight is a Atlas lighting. Repeater always funnel light on. Anyway, so, yeah, Rick tonight, the up to the usual off-center fed dipole at 13 feet. Let's see, just a quick overall roll game versus well, I didn't really do a lot of the old days and the vintage days. I had a buddy Ron, I don't remember his call anymore, but we were in college together. Him and his dad and his brother were all OEM. And Ron used to have a Rambler station wagon. And he and I on Friday or Saturday nights would go park up at the dam in Mount Baldy. And 40 meters on. He had a Swan Canna and a Swan 350. And that was my only experience in Mobile. Of course, we had to, make sure we didn't disturb anybody at the submarine races that went on every Friday and Saturday night up there. So we're just geeky as hell sitting there staring out over the valley and working for views. Let's see. Excuse me. Nowadays, I have used to FT450, and I take it out with me when I go camping, and I activate parts on the air, things like that. The new radio, it takes no time to set up. It takes no time to set up the antenna. Nothing military kind of antennas put together like basketball, how a roller gauge shows that in a tripod on a stick. And I'm on the air by the time my buddy's up there screwing around with his headset. So, yeah, it's a lot more convenient and a lot of fun. So that's what I do for mobile stuff. Good day, cold days.
All right, Glenn, super. WB6RLC and SSB Roundtable W6GQ. Well, Dennis out here in Inyo-Kern, where it's been a really nice day today. It's like 80 degrees, just beautiful. And everybody else is cooling down. We're warming back up again, which is nice. I don't like cold weather. Let's see, tonight we are running the KWM 380. And, of course, the Alpha 87 on the 380 out to the horizontal. And things are quite good tonight. Noise level is reasonable. I'm hearing everybody just fine. And I know Mark took off, I think, but I want to thank Mark for taking the early list tonight with a beautiful signal here in Southern California. And John, you're doing a great job as well with a booming signal here at W6GQ at Faraday Field. So we like that. Great questions, and I'm going to use question one. I've been mobile almost since I got my license. I think when I got my advanced, probably when I graduated. Well, I got the advanced in high school, but it was when I graduated and I got my driver's license. And first time I was driving, I had a radio in the car. It was a QRP rig, and I ran CW Mobile, but that didn't last long. I got an FT101 when they came around and stuffed that into my car. And I used that for years, primarily on 40 meters. I love 40-meter sideband mobile. And as I got new cars, they would go from car to car. But eventually, I got a car that didn't have room for the FT101. So welcome to the modern age. So that would have been in the 80s. And I replaced the FT101 with an IC730, which was a very, very compact radio for the time, which I still have, by the way. That was a neat little radio. I really liked that 730. So I ran the 730 mobile for years and years, and eventually replaced that with an FT100, and replaced the FT100 with the FT756, which I didn't like, so the FT100 went back. And then I picked up an IC7000, which is what I run now, still on 40 meters with a Hustler. None of this fancy antenna stuff. I use a Hustler. So that's what I'm using today is the IC7000. And what I've seen is, obviously the change from running an FT101 back in the day, with two vacuum tube finals and having to dip and tune and load the bisection output as you change frequencies and even tuning that Hustler antenna as I change from one frequency to another, but I tended to stay around the same spot. It was a lot of work. And one of the things I've noticed about modern vehicles, we have a lot of more problems today that are insurmountable somewhat with ignition noise. And it's not just ignition. It's the electronic fuel injectors and things like that create all kinds of hash. And you can't really suppress them because you alter the characteristics of the injector. And that affects the performance of your vehicle to the point where it will run. So things are a lot different. In the old day, you just put, the noise-suppressing spark cables, spark plug cables and all that. You can bond everything together. You can still bond everything together, but it doesn't get rid of all the noise that's there. So I've struggled with that. The modern radios have good noise blankers on them, so that helps a great deal. So, John, thanks for taking the net or the roundtable tonight. Sorry. Like I said, great questions and good signal up here. Thank you. And I'm going to send it over to Lisa, KF6QNG, and the Vintage Single Sideband Roundtable, W6DQ.
Okay, thank you. And thank you, Mark, for taking early. Thank you, John, for taking the roundtable. Well, I've never operated vintage gear either before or now, other than Dennis is here at the station, so that's mobile. Anyway, hope everyone's doing great. We are doing very well here. As Dennis said, we had a good time Saturday, and yeah, I like to grump and moan and groan about it, but in the end, had fun, so it's all good. Anyway, it's all for a good cause and a good purpose, and helps keep my skills up, which is always good. So with that, I'm going to send it over to Chuck, N6AF from KF6QNG.
All right, thanks, Lisa. November 6 Alpha Fox. Well, for those mathematically minded, normally 6 after 5 and 6 a.m. So, great question. And what comes to mind is driving around in the very early 80s in my 68 VW camper with a TS520 sitting on the passenger seat, and either a 108-inch whip whipping back and forth attached to the front bumper, or possibly a Hustler whip. But whatever the antenna was, I recall coming up Whipple Avenue in Redwood City after dark, talking to a guy in Caracas, Venezuela on 20 meters. So that was a lot of fun. The 68 camper and operating all that hybrid rig in there. So fast forward a few decades, and you may find me once in a while in my Chevy Silverado with an FT100D, which is a neat little brick of a rig there. And I run that into an ALS 500 amp and run upwards of maybe 450 out. That's only with the alternator spinning, of course, in the truck. Now, here's the funny part about it. Maybe not from a neurological standpoint, but let me describe this. The Hustler whip is mounted on your Issue 1 toolbox that's mounted in the bed of the pickup truck. And the antenna is maybe roughly 3 feet behind my cranium. And of course, the instrument cluster, the speedometer and tachometer, are directly ahead of me. Now, on voice peaks, with that amp turned on, those needles on the tach and the speedo will even tag sometimes. So that E-field is kind of running through the head there, and it hasn't affected me much, although once in a while when I'm driving around I will see these sort of purple orbs drifting by the windshield, but other than that I think it's fine. K6KOI from normally 6 after 5.
Okay, I copied everybody. The ears noise. Interestingly, the noise blanker on this old helicopter, circa 1960s, late 60s, I think, the SR-2000 is the most effective noise blanker, maybe other than the Drake. Drake is also very effective, but much better than even my modern radios. It's quite amazing. So I was able to copy, and sounds like a lot of people have had good mobile experiences, and some had teenagers, and I'm just thinking how you could have avoided all sorts of trouble by being a teenager up in the mountains where there's a view, parked, talking on ham radio. versus your colleagues and contemporaries who are up in that same area, but they were not on ham radio. They were doing other things that might have just gotten them into a lot of trouble. So I'll just leave it at that, and I'm going to change the list just a little bit because I know Ron has to get up early in the morning. He's doing a very good deed for somebody who needs transportation for medical purposes. And so hopefully you're listening, Ron. You're coming up next. And then after that, please turn it over to Phil, N6WHK. We'll turn it over to Mike, KG7TR. And then over to Dave, WJ6W. Back to me. Are you there, Ron? K2RP, K6KR.
Guys carrying their DX100s and really heavy travel and receivers. And about 1971 or so, I built a SP303 and 401, which even today is a hit of the party. Transceiving each other, but the operation was move somebody in 0 meter. Compare that to today's transceivers. Operation is very different. There's us about I remember at 10 years ago. Less and less of that. Our rowing group has been going up to AK6Rs for field day and just using his antennas and putting us in whatever class he puts us in. But nobody has the strength to even string a dipole, which we did up to a few years ago. So it's not only the technology, it's the bones are working the same way they used to. Anyway, John, thanks for taking the net tonight. Sorry, and thank you also for the consideration. Let's send it over to Phil.
K2RP, November 6th, Whiskey Hotel Kilo. Fine business all the way down the list so far. Been interesting answers, and I appreciate that. Gives me ideas. I've never really run vintage equipment on a field day. George and I, YEC and I, went to a number of field day sites just to see what they were doing. But I run a 706 Mark IIG in my mobile, and I really like that. And I have a screwdriver on it, and it works very well. Of course, it's not quite vintage, but it's getting there. And I can drive up to Utah quite a bit to visit my kids, grandkids, and my son and daughter-in-law. And it sure comes in handy on those long drives between here and there, because it gives me something to do, and I don't like AM radio or FM radio because it's always fading in, fading out, and I like to get on HF and I talk on HF, and that keeps me occupied and keeps me a little bit alert. So with that, I'm going to turn it on over. KG7TR and 6WHK.
foreman was outside. One of us was working the rock river. So it was pretty miserable and hot. And set up some homebrew stuff. We lost emergency power until we get to the end of a 100-foot extension cord, so it's a little bit tight. But anyway, nothing overheated. Nothing burned up. All the radios were fine. Everything worked out. That's about as close as I ever came to it. And wasn't really that comfortable working on fractional light. So from here, we'll go to the end. KG7PR WJ6W. Okay, thank you, Mike. Very good at copying everyone pretty well tonight. Let's see, we're running tonight the Atlas 210X into a Collins 3001, and the microphone here is a D104. And that's the story on the equipment here. Question, very interesting question, John. However, I've really never operated modern equipment, either mobile or field day, but I have operated vintage on field days when we used to have vintage field day, AM field day, vintage AM field day. I think I was sponsored by ER Magazine. And one time I took my Gonset twins, the mobile Gonset twins that I have here in the station, installed, and I took them out into a car. Now the power supply is supposed to run on car voltage, but I didn't have a vibrator that worked, so I had a cheap inverter, 12 volt to 120 volt inverter, and I used that for the Gonset twins. And went out in the neighborhood at the end of a road here out at the edge of wilderness here in the neighborhood, and stuck up a doublet antenna between two streetlight poles, and operated the Gonset twins from the car with a jerry-rigged setup. Worked okay, except it was a really cheap inverter, and it introduced a lot of noise in both the transmitter and receiver. But everyone copied me okay. But anyway, that was my experience, one of my experiences on vintage field day. Then also, I many times took part in the military field day that we used to have at San Pedro once a year, and operated some really cool old military gear, about a 10-watt AM transmitter, and a group of us would attend that, and we'd be scattered all around the San Pedro area and communicate and pass messages around to each other. That was quite a hoot. So we found out how accurately we could relay message from one to the other, and at the end of the day we would see how the message started and how it ended up. So that was kind of fun. So that's the story as I have it. Couldn't answer the question exactly, but that's what I have. So back to you, John, K6KOI, WJ6W.
Very good. And by the way, the noise went away here. My neighbor turned off the light that is the cause of noise, and that's a good thing. So a couple comments. First to Dave. Dave, you really sound good with that D104 hooked up to your vintage transceiver, and I just wanted to mention that. I think you said it was an Atlas 210X. It sounds mighty fine. And the other comment is also directed to Dave. I just bet you that inverter was a so-called modified sine wave. Is that correct?
Oh yeah, it was. It was before the days of whatever they call them now, the pure sine wave ones.
Yep. And those square waves, boy, they cause havoc. Man, they have a lot of harmonics. So understood. And actually, the only person I had some difficulty copying was Mike. I got about half of your transmission, but it's good to hear you on. And I'm going to relate my little story real quickly. Actually, two aspects of it. First So I've done no contemporary gear for mobile. It's hard enough for me to drive with a cell phone and on speaker, let alone ham radio. I don't know. At this age, I kind of feel like I need to focus on the driving. But in the early days, I did do some mobile with the Helicopters SR-150, and that was a lot of fun. But the one memory that really sticks in my mind, and it was actually Phil who reminded me of it, because he talked about on long trips, how helpful it is to have ham radio. Well, the one memory I have is we were on a ski trip, and we drove from San Diego to Mammoth, and hit one hell of a storm as we were approaching Mammoth. It was blinding, and I had 2 meters. I had a repeater that was active, that was monitoring all the time, and man, was that a feeling of comfort to know that we had a problem. At least I had communication. That was clearly before cell phones. Things have changed a lot, but that's my recollection. So over to Skip K6LGL, and then over to Matthew N4DLA, then to Bob WA6JIB, and George W6YC, and back to me. Take it away, Skip K6KY.
Okay, thank you, John. K6KY, Individual Sideband Group. Good evening from Skip in Santa Monica, K6 Little Green Light. My earliest mobile operation were in my first car, 1947 Pontiac 310 and I had all couple of different antennas on there and everything. And I had on the KBS 50D transmitter with a 6-volt motor and a non-specific motor that I would have set up on that one. And I also have a compulsion motor, which is a broadcast that could also receive 6 motor there. So that was one variation. Then on the 54, I ran a combination both concept the so-called Greeny Bird, and then known as the Black Widow, which came a little bit later. They came out about 57, somewhere around the K6 TJP, I think was producing them. And a variety of those mobile, and then of all different kinds, 6-channel lights, and then I had a 74 Honda where I had single sideband on 6, 2, 220, and 442 FM, and plus the low band capability. So we had that. And then finally on a modified 7000 with a few modifications to LC 7000. Several different antennas on emitters and 432. The store on that variety, and for a while I was running the high power 6-meter retrieving which we call high power mobile radio. And that was the cycle machine. I was on 6, I was in about a 7-meter. It was the world on 10, but it was a chance, more of a challenge to do it on 6, and that's what I was trying to do. Okay, I guess it was the last one in case he doesn't have me. You may be ruling for me there, John. N4DLA, then Radio City, I believe. K6LGL.
Okay, thanks, Skip. K6LGL is the mentioned sideband roundtable from Matthew N4DLA in Orinda, California, about 15 miles east of San Francisco. Is HW101 with the 104 microphone, the amplified SB 600 speaker running about 100 watts out. HF equipment at home. Didn't have any mobile HF. Eventually, my 19th year in high school, I had a Clegg FM 27B and a 5/8 wave 2-meter vertical, but we were a one-car family, so it didn't get on the air that much with it. But I did work W4B at KFC, Vic Clark, the future ARL president, when I was 17 years old, driving with my parents from 3-land to 4-land while we were still in the Northern Virginia area. He came on a repeater and said he was monitoring, so I called him, and we had a short fuse, so that was cool. But my HF mobile was limited to 10 meters initially, because that's all the mobile antenna I had was for 10 meters, and I had a Tech Argosy that I got fused in 1994 and ran that on 10 meters. So just kept that at the home station, and now I've like what M6WHK has a 706 Mark II-G, and I use antenna tuner with ham sticks. That seems to work pretty well for mobile applications. So, but didn't have any HF mobile antennas other than 10 meters, and not until I was 32. So on to Bob, my fellow railroad fan, WA9JIB from N4DLA.
Okay, Matthew, N4DLA and the group is WA9JIB. Bob over here in La Piñata, where I almost always am. Yeah, we're warming up this week, too. Supposed to be like 90 or something by Thursday or Friday. But it won't be too bad because the sun is low, so it won't heat up the house that much. And let's see, what other news? Yeah, I mentioned a few weeks ago I was going to go to El Mirage Dry Lake to do some filming for a music video, a song I wrote. And we did that this Saturday, and the lake was dry. So, boy, what a weird place. Very desolate. So, I've been to Rogers Dry Lake for space shuttle landings, but I've never been to El Mirage before. I guess it was incredibly, it was very cold and very windy, and the wind just never stopped. I guess they set some sailplane altitude records out there over the years, 50,000 feet or something like that, I think. So, and let's see, this Thursday is my birthday, 71 years old, so how about that? Anyway, let's see, not D104, Kenwood MC50 microphone, Helicopters HD32B transmitter, Helicopters SS115 receiver, Helicopters speaker, Homebrew 80-meter dipole, hanging off a 35-foot mast, inverted V. So that's the toys for the evening. Never did really operate mobiles like after Q1, so Q2. I operated Field A1 in the good old days as a teenager. I don't really remember much about it other than the location. It was a beautiful day. Let's see, I don't remember the gear we had. So, I just don't remember that much about it. It's pretty strange. But in the, it was about half a mile from my house by maybe 6 blocks from my house. Just walked into the big city park area that belonged to the Order of Priests that were teachers at the high school I went to. This was in River Forest, Illinois, if anybody knows where that is, kind of on the western suburb of Chicago. But in recent years, I've done a lot of field day operations with the Corsena Valley Radio Club. And, of course, we generally don't use vintage gear because nobody wants to lug that. And we usually operate out of a park in Glendale. This time we operated out of the home of, I think, a 93-year-old club member in Rocky Mountain. Points, but it was so fun. She's got field days. So anyway, so I've got maybe 7 or 8 years of field day experience at least, but only 1 year in. Okay, with that, over to George, W6YEC, WA9JIB.
Okay, Bob, W6YEC. The
helicopter sounds great. It drifted high, but I didn't touch the dial. I can still understand what you were saying. So hopefully we're still someone on that 3895. We'll see here. I turned on the icon just to see. So I'm off a little bit too. So anyway, we'll just zero beat it as best we can.
All right. So anyway, very interesting question tonight. And we've done a lot of mobile with the vintage over the past years, and field day as well. And let's see, mobile vintage. By the way, tonight we're running the GSI 20 and a 30L watt. Just for information. And years ago, I picked up a Swan 350, and I had that in my Thunderbird, and a Swan antenna, and had a lot of fun with it. Eventually, I took that in the house and picked up an HW32, because I found myself mostly on 20 meters. So I put an HW32 in the car, and had a monobander, had a lot of fun with that. And then it was my 52 Chevy. I decided to try to go AM mobile. So I put the Moral Twins in there, and out of the 50s. And that was very enjoyable, because there wasn't much going on during the day. It was quite noisy. And it didn't really, driving that tree on the column there, on the tree, as they say, and it wasn't a sweet experience. So I took the Moral Twins out of there and put FM 2 meter and 220 in the truck, so I'd have for mobile. And years ago, I used to do 2 meter AM with the Heathkit Tour. That was a lot of fun. Go up on the mountains and use Tour for drive around and be on 2 meter AM with the Tour. So, and I did used to use my Gonza Twins mobile years ago, and that was a lot of fun. Having the Twins, good-looking radios in the car. All right, that's my mobile testimony for the question tonight. And good to hear everybody. Sounding great. John, good job on running that. So I think it goes back to you. Because Ron followed me, but he's already had his turn. K6KOI, take it away, W6YEC.
Okay, thank you, George. Well, you've got a nice signal, good strong signal. Of course, the Kenwood always sounds good. Those 520s, they just keep on trucking. I think it's one of the best rigs ever made, K6KOI. I was able to copy a little bit of what others had to say, but I had problems again that reoccurred, so it was a difficult thing. Let's see, I think we have two more, and that's the end of the list. And so let's, without further ado, let's turn it over to KJ6HN. Max, good to hear you. And turn it over to Jay, NY6L. And then back to me, and I'll wrap things up. So over to you, Max, K6KOI.
Yeah, okay, John. I think that K2RP was in there before me.
Well, he already had a turn. I took him out of sequence because I know he has to get up very early tomorrow, and he's doing a good deed for somebody, and I just figured it'd be a good thing to do. So he's had his turn.
Okay, then. Good call. Well, good roundtable tonight. Always like getting together with my roundtable friends, and that's a great question. I don't think anybody's brought up mobile operations, but back in the day when I first got licensed as a ham in the 1980s, early 1980s, my Elmer gave me a Bandmaster transceiver, which was huge, and I had to get a huge converter to power it up in my International Harvester
lost my job during the Great Recession of early or mid 1980s, and so I was driving to Deep Springs Valley. Look that up if you've never looked it up before. Look it up. Very interesting place, the college there. And I became a college instructor for students maintaining the agricultural equipment around the property. And in the process of having that Harvey Wells bandmaster as my scout, I became what you might say pen pals with this guy from Japan who lived in a completely different environment than me. Excuse me again. My so-called pen pal friend lived about 40 miles south of Tokyo and could not afford any place closer than that because of him living with his wife and his two children, both sons, along with my relatively new wife and our two sons. And so we had a lot of stories to share, and our conversations were very, very interesting. And that was, during solar peak 22 or 23, I can't remember. But we became great friends from there, and it was a wonderful experience, which I'll never forget. And I have notes in my logbook, which I don't have in front of me, but if I did have it in front of me, I'd be able to relay some of those notes. Anyway, it was a great relationship. We had a great time connecting on the air Monday, Wednesday, and Friday as I drove to Springs Valley on my way to work. And so that's my story for the evening, keeping it short-ish. And I think, John, I think it goes over to NY6L. I don't know. Anyway, I'll pass it back up to you. K6KOI, KJ6HN.
Great story, and I really appreciate that. And it does go to Jay, but real quickly, I have a question. Have you been in contact with him since those times?
No, I have not. I would have to drag out the logbook, an old ARRL logbook, and learn his call sign again, and regale on our conversations. So, yeah, sadly the answer is no. I haven't been in contact with him, but I sure would like to. Back to you.
Yeah, it just for the heck of it, it sounds like a wonderful friendship that blossomed, and you might, look him up on QRZ and send him an email, and just a thought. So, Jay, let me guess, are you perhaps using an Aldo 103? Just a wild guess, NY6L, K6KY.
Well, of course. Of course, a little bit of tune-up here, and yes, sir. And I'll copy John over.
Q5, old man.
All right, very good. Yes, I am getting older. All right, we're putting out a hefty 70 to 74 watts on his radio at his Aldo 103. Okay. Well, let's see if this question might pertain to my experiences, quote-unquote, vintage mobile. Well, this is before I was even a ham. My first Elmer was Bob Hanley W6LCH. I was living in Santa Monica with my mother there, and met up with Bob. It's a long story, but anyway, he had a Volkswagen, and he had a single-band 20-meter Swan transceiver under the glove box of his Volkswagen, and the switching power supply could hear it whine when, especially when he keyed it up and used it. Under the back seat, I guess that's where the battery was, but anyway, he had a base-loaded single-band antenna with an alligator clip to check the tapping of the antenna for proper tuning, 102-inch whip. But that was my first experience on not only ham radio, not only vintage radio back then, but talking to someone that's been so long. I was 13, 14 years old back back then, but I wasn't tired, but doggone it, I wish I got my license back then, but didn't fruition until several years later. So that's kind of like my story on that. And as far as anything that I was on mobile as a licensed ham, no, I have not as far as vintage gear at this time, but I might give it a try. Maybe with the Zalda, maybe go mobile. I'll have to get some ham sticks and maybe figure out how to mount a sturdy mount on the SUV and give it a try. So anyway, back to you there, John, K6KOI, NY6, Barry, running the Alder 103.
Okay, well, if you will remind me next time we have a barbecue or whatever, I've got some ham stick antenna apparatus sitting in the garage someplace, and it's yours if I can find it. So that you can complete the Alda story, K6KOI. Well, thank you, everybody. This has been very enjoyable. And thank you again. I don't think he's listening. I think he went to bed early, but Ron, if you are listening, thank you for the 2 questions. They were great and appreciated by everybody. And so I'm going to give the coveted Golden Cup Award to Max, because Max told just a wonderful story of what, for me anyway, one of the biggest parts of ham radio is all about, and that is making friendships. And making friendships while you're commuting to work with somebody that is across the ocean, that's pretty special. KJ6HN, say a few words, K6KOI.
Well, thanks a lot. That's, your words are very encouraging, and I can't begin to tell you and the rest of the people listening here what our conversations were about. But I will highlight one thing. When my Japanese friend living south of Tokyo, 40 miles south of Tokyo, learned that I lived a 5-mile drive from where I worked, he was absolutely astounded that anybody could do that, because Tokyo is like the largest city in the world, or one of, and people cannot live close to town when they need to work to make their daily wages. And when I told him about my house, what was it back then in Bishop, California, approximately a 2,000 square foot house in a rural subdivision of California, way up north of Los Angeles, and we shared our stories about that. He was almost in disbelief that he and his wife and 2 children lived in something like an 800 square foot apartment south of Tokyo just to survive. And this guy was a professional photographer, college educated, taking photographs of Tokyo's recent cars that came out in the early 1980s or mid 1980s for use in photography journals. And it was really interesting comparing our lives. And I'll just leave it at that. But it was very interesting how we had discussions about our different lives. So back to you, John. K6KOI, KJ6HN.
Yep, that feels like a reality check and kind of puts in perspective all the advantages we have here, and they are many. And so it makes you appreciate even more what we all have. So good evening, everybody, and thank you for participating. See you next week. K6KOI.